It's all about protecting the consumer. The roof is going to leak. They're not the expert of everything. They're not a plumber. The longest inspection I ever had to experience was like 12 hours. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for finding us on your favorite podcast app and or YouTube. My name is Joe Lee with Faith Wilson, Christie's International Real Estate.
And my name is Jeff Chan, also licensed with Faith Wilson, Christie's International Real Estate.
And starting from today, we're also known as the Mike for Vancouver Real Estate.
Joe, how's it going, man? Looking a little tired there. Crazy weekend, hey?
Good weekend. Yeah. Congrats to the newlywed once again. And thank you for inviting us.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But on with the show.
First podcast, and we chose one of a subject to talk about. Today is all about inspections.
The most exciting topic in real estate.
Man, I'm getting really excited and pumped up just thinking about it. Hence the coffee, right? But all jokes aside though, there's a reason why we chose inspection, right? Based on where we're coming, like the crazy market that we had last couple of years. And now, of course, where we're going with the news about the 3-day cooling off period, it's all about protecting the consumer, right? We just came from about 2.5 years of pretty much subject-free everything.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of people might have forgotten about this whole inspection thing. So I think right now would be a good time just to kind of revisit this, give people some value about what is it about inspection that is so important and how does inspection actually play out and what are some of the misconceptions, right? So why don't we go first? What is inspection?
Yeah, well, in inspection in terms of real estate, throughout the buying process, a buyer may choose to hire an inspector to come in, take a look at the property, and what they're hoping to find out is, hey, is this property as good as what it appears to be on the surface level?
That's right.
Now, granted, the inspector is not going to be able to tell you with 100% certainty that this home is perfect, but they will bring you more awareness as to some of the things that you might want to take a deeper look into or maybe hire a different professional, and they will add value to the buying process, which is why, Joe, I think you agree, we're on the same page here that the inspection process is very, very important, and we do recommend that every buyer hire an inspector before purchasing a property.
Absolutely, because nobody wants to, buy something, get super excited, and then they go pick up the keys, and then, it's not what it was advertised.
Yeah, it's like, we'll use this analogy when you're purchasing a used vehicle. You walk into a car dealership, they sell you this fancy convertible, it's got leather seats, all the bells and whistles, top of the line, premium package, whatever. You drive it home. 2 days later, the check engine light turns on. You have a $10,000 repair. And you're like, oh shit, what am I going to do now?
Not a good feeling.
Definitely not a good feeling. Which is why the inspector, in terms of purchasing a home, they're supposed to tell you kind of maybe, hey, this might not be the best purchase and this is why. Or hey, these are the things that you should be aware of and fix before buying. Now, being an inspector for properties is not, hey, sign up and off you go. It's just like being a realtor, a license is required, and I'm just going to quickly go over the different qualifications that you need in order to become a home inspector. You have to have a minimum of 150 hours of an in-room classroom setting. It requires a license, obviously. You have to pass a provincially approved exam. I believe it's called the HIABC exam. 50 hours of field training with a qualified trainer. You have to do a peer review inspection. And you also have a report verification because as an inspector, you do have to compile detailed reports for the buyer and the customer. And 3 reports will be reviewed. Yeah. And I guess what I'll also say is that, inspectors, just like realtors, they come in all shapes and sizes. Some take the extra step and they continue their education beyond the bare minimum. And some people, they'll write their exam and they'll never open a book again. So choose wisely.
Definitely. Now, I just wanted to add on to what you said because you brought a really good point that just like realtors, inspectors comes in different shapes and forms and stuff like that, right? I mean, that's why as agents, we always have a very deep pool of, inspectors in our pocket, because not only are we talking about the different product types, some inspectors only do different cities. They don't do all the cities, right? And also some inspectors might be only specialized in condos, right? So that's why who you choose as an inspector or the agent recommend is very, very important. Also, another thing is like the way they communicate. Right. I'll give you a perfect example. I mean, this happened a couple of years ago. I had a buyer. We pretty much bought a brand new home, almost just like under a year old. And then we let the inspector run the stuff. I didn't choose this inspector, right? And then me and the buyer showed up, right? First thing he said, buyers house to house. First thing he says, the roof is gonna leak.
Oh,
And then obviously you could tell the buyer's face was like, oh my God, isn't this a new home?
Yeah.
And then me as an agent, I'm like, I'm trying to put out the fire, right? I'm like, where's the leak? Like, what are we doing? No, there's new home warranty. Like, I'm already trying to think about different options, right? And then the inspector was like, no, I'm not saying that the roof is leaking. I'm saying the roof is going to leak.
well, thanks, Captain Obvious.
Yeah, and then I thought I was like, well, is it because something was installed wrong? He was like, no, the roof's gonna leak. I'm like, oh, eventually it's going to leak. Like, I'm like, yeah, obviously everything has shelf life and everything requires maintenance, right? But you can imagine as a buyer who's a first time, who's just spent over $1 million and step in, that's the first thing she hears, right? I don't know, maybe the inspector was having a bad day, I wasn't sure, but that definitely did not start off on a great footing, right? So that's another thing I would say about inspectors as well, that the way they communicate is also very, very important, and it's not one size, shoes fits all, right? And another thing about inspectors, I always like to tell people is that they're not the expert of everything. They're not a plumber, electrician, handyman. What they do is they can kind of go through the whole house, and if they feel like, okay, I see something it's a little off here, what the inspector would then do is they would recommend saying, hey, maybe you should check out that. Maybe get a roofer to come check this out.
Yeah.
Maybe get a plumber guy or pump guy to come check this out, right? Because I feel like something's a little off.
Yeah.
The way I like to kind of put it is that they're more of a medical doctor, MD, family doctor. And then they come in, oh, I don't feel well. You go in, and they're like, oh, okay. Well, it's kind of your stomach, and then I can't figure out just by looking at it with equipment that I have. I'm gonna send you to a specialist. That's how I think about inspectors. They're kind of like that MD, medical doctor, and of course, whatever's needed, then they will suggest you to wherever.
Yeah.
Right?
So they can tell something's not right, but they might not necessarily have the full answer.
That's right. That's absolutely the case, right? And another thing I just wanted to also talk about inspectors is that they do have their limitations, right? I think the biggest limitation is they can't move stuff. For example, like you go in, it's a very beautiful house. As a buyer, obviously, like I want to check everything,
Of
right?
course.
But they're restricted with furniture placements. For example, if there is a huge bookshelf right here full of books, the inspectors isn't going to take all the books out, shift the bookshelf forward a little bit, and check what's behind this wall. There's just like, unfortunately, there's a bunch of stuff, I just can't access it, right? And for good reasons, honestly, right? Can you imagine if an inspector goes in, does thing and start moving things around and something breaks?
Who's paying for it?
Who's paying for it?
Yeah.
The agent, the buyer, the inspector? Because the seller ain't gonna be happy, that's for sure, right? And plus, who likes to get their stuff touched?
Yeah.
Right? Especially personal stuff, right? So please just do understand that. With a lot of buyers, sometimes they were like, why didn't you check behind the couch? Well, the couch was probably like 20,000 kilograms. Like, they can't move it, right? And then if they move it, they scratch the floor. Who's paying for that?
Yeah.
Exactly. Right?
Okay.
So that's some of the things just to kind of get the feet wet in terms of inspection. But Jeff, why don't you just kind of let everybody know if people are doing inspection, how long does it generally take and what happens afterwards?
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, we all know that no two properties are the same, but a general rule of thumb, we would probably say a one-bedroom condo may take 60 to 90 minutes. A townhouse, probably about 2 hours or so. A detached home up to like 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, 3 to 4 hours. Now, if you're really, really balling out and you're going to these West Van mansions, it could take up to 6 hours. So the bigger the property, the longer it's going to take. But shortly after, the inspector will compile a detailed report for the buyer because that is the client. But please make sure you guys read that in detail and you understand exactly what you are buying and what the inspector has presented to you. Do not treat it like the terms of conditions for your new iOS and just click agree and forget about it. You are paying for this, and at the end of the day, that report is meant to protect and educate you as the buyer.
Correct. Funny thing is, when you're talking about timeline, I still remember it's like the longest inspection I ever had to experience was like 12 hours. That was fun, and it wasn't one person doing it. It was
And I don't think the inspectors get paid by the hour, do they?
No, I don't. So yeah, that one, I don't know, man. That one might be a lost money business for him.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I'm just here for 12 hours. But thank you so much for that. And obviously, now we're gonna get into the interesting part: is what happens after you get this report. And this is where things can really go in many directions. But before that, like, oh, which direction we go? I think the first thing I must say is that there is some misconception out there, especially for consumers, is that the seller is not obligated to fix anything if they don't want to, right? Because, I mean, it's really for the buyer's peace of mind, right? Especially in the market that we just came from, right? First of all, I don't even know why I would let you put a subject to inspection. Let's just say that, okay, I took your subject to inspection, you did the inspection, and then you're like, oh, fix this. I'm just gonna be like, no thanks. I have like 7 other people here who's willing to do it subject free, right? So no, I'm not fixing anything, right? When the market changes, obviously, you're the first offer to the seller in like, I don't know, let's say 120 days.
Yeah.
Oh, then you can really bank on the fact that the seller pretty sure wants to work with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want all my electrical outlets changed to purple.
Yeah.
I want a 60-inch TV. Leave it.
Like, and that's all part of, position of power, depending on the market, right? So that's the first thing. Now, let's say that, okay, the seller does want to work with you in regards to, after the post-inspection stuff, right? Then it really goes into 2 different paths. The first path, which is the path that I usually take when I was kind of newer in the industry, was I get the seller to help us fix it. Now, there's obviously advantage or disadvantages of it. Advantage, very easy. You don't have to think about it.
Yeah, it's all done before you get the keys.
Exactly. You don't have to worry about anything, right?
Yeah.
Well, the disadvantage is quality control, right?
Right.
Let's be honest. By the time you're talking about who's fixing this, all this stuff, the subject is probably already removed, right? So in the seller's perspective, the home really isn't his anymore, or his or hers anymore, right? So how much effort do you think the seller is going to take into repairing it? You're lucky if he gets a handyman. He might just do it himself. Unless you written it into contract, you need a professional guy to do this, right? But even then, you think he's gonna go find the most expensive, like the most detail-oriented person? No, he's gonna do the bare minimum that will pass this and just get it out of the way, right?
Definitely.
And sometimes that expectation differences, it gets the buyer really disappointed, right? So that's definitely the disadvantage of getting the seller to fix it, right? Because I always like to say, good is an extremely subjective term. What is a good car? What is a good kid? What is a good TV? What is a good computer? My good, your good, his, her good. It's all completely different based on our experiences, our upbringing, right? So never really just, make assumptions like, oh yeah, they'll do a good job, right? Maybe they did do a good job in their mind, but in your mind, you don't think that's a good job, right? So if you want to avoid that, then obviously we take the other approach, which is ask for money. Right? I mean, everybody love asking for money.
Who doesn't love more money?
Yeah, exactly, right? And then even asking for money, there's 2 different ways into doing this, right? But before I get into that, though, let's just talk a little bit about the advantage and disadvantage, right? The advantage, we already talked about, who doesn't like money, you have more control, you get to hire the handyman that you like. If you know how to fix it, that's even better. Then, you just do it yourself, save a little bit in your pocket, right? So that's definitely the really good part, right? And then, of course, when you're talking about cash, there's really 2 ways to kind of get that cash. The first one, which is the one that's I see more often, which is a credit on the statement of adjustments, right? So basically, you go to the notary office, there will be, credit, debit, and all of a sudden it'll be, for example, 25. I'm just going to use 25 going forward. 2,500 was the repair, the agreed repair amount. Then you just get 25.
It's like a cashback.
Basically, it's a cashback, and then you can take that money, and then you once again, if you want, you can fix everything yourself. Go buy a nice couch, go buy a nice TV. If you don't know how to do it or you don't want to do it, go hire a handyman that you trust.
Yeah.
In using that money, right? Another way of doing it is really just reduce the price. Now, of course, we all know the benefit of just completely just reducing the price. You just pay less tax. Right? I mean, it's not a lot. I mean, 2,500. Like, how much could that be? Like,
$25.
or something like that, right? But hey, that's lunch. That's dinner.
Yeah, that's a Big Mac combo right there.
Exactly. Right. The disadvantages would be it doesn't seem like you have a cash back, right? So what would happen is that if you spend all the money buying the real estate, well, you don't get extra cash into repairing it, right? So that's kind of something that people also want to think about as well. It's not right or wrong. I just feel like it's very important that after the report has been received, that you sit down with your agent and just be like, hey, this is what's happening. Which path do you want to take? How comfortable are you with repairing everything? Or do you even want to do it?
Yeah, because everyone's in a different financial situation.
Exactly, right? So that's kind of what I would say in regards to the after the fact. But before we move on, though, there is one thing that I just wanted to quickly touch base is if you are getting the seller to fix it for you, please, write into the contract that you will want to go back 3 to 4 days, I don't know, pick a day, right, before completion for you to see the repair or whatever they promise you to do, right? Because let's be honest, by the time you get your keys and you're a happy buyer, it's a happy day, possession day, you open up your condo or your townhouse or your houses, and then maybe out of 5 things, the seller maybe fixed 4. What are you gonna do? You really gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna take this guy to court, small claim court, and try to get him to fix this? Sure, theory it sounds great, right? But in reality, just getting your file looked at might be like 1 or 2 years. Really? And we're not even talking about lawyer fee, like any of this stuff, right? Do you really want to go down that path just because maybe there's a hole on the drywall?
Probably not.
It's frustrating, really, honestly speaking, right? So it's always best to make sure that everything was done as per promise before possession.
Be proactive, not reactive, please.
That's right. Because let's be honest, once you get the keys, good luck trying to find a seller.
Yeah.
Unless there's something really dramatically wrong with the house, then that's a completely different. But a small thing like this, good luck.
What's that thing our managing broker always says? Willing buyer, willing seller, and everything's all good?
Exactly, right? And another thing for a lot of consumers, I always like to remind them is, because their emotion gets involved, is that for resale especially, we're not buying a new home. We're not. There's bound to have some wear and tear, right? There's bound to be a little dent here, a little dent there. Please don't expect the house to be absolutely perfect. It's not a new home. If that's what you're expecting, go buy a new home, right? Go buy a pre-sale. Right? Then you don't have inspection, you have a deficiency walkthrough, which we'll cover in a different podcast altogether in the future. Right?
So we're more like buying a demo vehicle or, a lightly used one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, the dog. Wow, rough.
I got some furry friends.
I know, right? So that's kind of the basic stuff that I want to just quickly cover with inspections. Now, Jeff, you ready? Let's do some quick rapid fires for other people just to kind of get some other questions out of the way.
Yeah, let's do it.
First question. Do you need to be there during the whole duration when the inspector is checking?
Can you guys imagine if you were buying that home that took 12 hours to get inspected and you stayed there for the entire inspection? So the answer is no. Nobody has 4 hours even to just sit there and wait for an inspector to do their work. I'm better off going to watch a movie with my friends and having dinner afterwards and having some drinks, right? It actually impedes the process if you guys stay...
Oh my god, that actually scared me.
We're actually very dog-friendly people, but they're just a little bit excited today to see us. As what I was saying, it actually really impedes the inspection process. So it is advised that you only show up maybe towards the last half hour of the inspection. Then they'll go through a walkthrough about what they found. They'll take about maybe up to 24 hours to compile a final report, and then that'll have all the details that you need to read over.
Yeah, I'm not an inspector, but I'm just assuming that the inspector also doesn't really want the buyer to be there literally from the beginning, right? Because, come on, let's be honest. If this is our home, and then, if, for example, that client that we had, it's like literally he was there from the beginning, right?
Yeah.
He turned on the dishwasher. He hasn't even opened up his folder yet, the inspector. And then the buyer is already like,
Are you done yet? How's it going?
Yeah.
Are you done yet?
Yeah. Is everything good? How's the dishwasher? Is it leaking? Oh, you have to check this corner over here. It's like, the inspector was like, I know, of course, I understand, right? But then if you keep asking them those questions, you're just dragging that time away, right? Like, why? Why are you doing this, right? And let the experts do their thing, right? And then just go in and enjoy the report.
Yeah.
All right. Second question. Since not everybody's buying houses nowadays, there's obviously people buying townhouses and also condos. Do inspectors check the common areas?
Oh, the common areas, such as like the roof. Okay, well, really depends on the property management company and whether or not you can get a hold of the property manager in the first place. Not throwing any shade, but sometimes they do get really busy. So putting in a request to see the roof can take some time already. So please be prepared and plan for that. But the answer is depends on the situation. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But please communicate with your realtor, and they'll do their due diligence for you as well. And if you're not allowed access to the roof, or the inspector, I should say, the realtor should still seek some documentation to give you an idea about the condition of the roof.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in the depreciation report.
That's right. Yeah, there's a lot of those extra documents, obviously, especially for stratified homes, for us to be able to kind of track back on those things as well. It's funny though. That kind of reminds me of there's that one deal that we did. We requested. To check the roof and the boiler for the building, and I remember like we didn't hear anything back.
I think it was already after completion. The keys were handed over, and we finally got an email, and it said no.
Yeah, and then we're like, okay, thanks. Well, too late now, right? Other things about inspection, a lot of people generally have is picture frames, wall hung stuff, and TV mounts, right? What are your thoughts on these?
If it matters to you as the buyer, have your realtor write it into the contract. No handshake deals. If there's one thing you remember today, write it down if it's important to you. Do not just go by word of mouth.
Exactly, because if you don't write these things down, I'm gonna say 99 out of 100, you're gonna get holes. When they take the pictures down, you're gonna get a bunch of holes on your wall. And I mean, picture frame holes, like they're very, very small, but for some people, it matters.
And that 1% is if you're buying a home from your mom or dad, right?
Exactly, right? Or you're buying a new home, right? The other thing, of course, is TV mount. Now, TV mount is always quite interesting in terms of like, do I want this? Do I keep this? Like, what happens? Because I don't want to get too technical about it, because like some TV mount doesn't work for some TV only works with a couple of TV mounts, right? So if you don't talk about it, then you're either going to get a TV mount and you just pray that it will work with a TV, or you're going to get 6 holes in the wall. And maybe it's patched, but most likely it's not patched. It just has those holes in there.
I mean, if you like to live on your life on the edge and dangerously, then don't write it in. Just see what happens.
Yeah, and of course, when do you write it in? Should I write it in? It all depends on the market. Position of power. Once again, if the market is good and you're telling him, it's like, if I don't want this TV mount, remove it and patch the holes, he's probably going to be like, no, I'm going to sell it to the next guy. All right? Of course, when the market is slow, they'll probably be like, okay, fine, we'll patch it, right? And then what we deal with that afterwards, like painting and stuff like that, that's other discussion, like whether or not you want the seller to paint the whole wall for you as well, right? Market dependent, right? Yeah. And since we're talking about picture frame, TV mounts, one question I have is for resale especially, how much should a consumer save as their back pocket for, I guess, fixing up the place?
Yeah, you know what? Like, the cost of buying a home quickly adds up. And then now we're talking about inspections and keeping another piggy bank. General rule of thumb that I'd like to advise my clients is that you should keep about 10% of the purchase price, just as a little bit of a safety net for any unforeseen repairs that might come up. Now, okay, let's do some quick math here. $1 million, 10%, 100K. Now, that 100K does seem like quite a bit of money, when as a safety fund, but you probably won't need to use all of it. We just advise that because it's better to have more than not enough.
Exactly.
So if you're in a cash positive position and you're in a good spot to keep that aside, please do it. But it's definitely, by all means, not a do or die.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some of the most common thing that a lot of people want to do once they move in is a new fresh coat of paint, sometimes new flooring, right, depending on the quality, right? Some people say they want to change the toilet or change the toilet seat at least, just personal hygiene stuff, right? So yeah, I would definitely say keep some, and then definitely don't put everything into the purchase and not have any money on the side to do any of this, especially in resale, guys. So that's very, very important.
And remember, this is just for older homes.
Yes.
Yeah, we're saying like 10, 15 years or more.
And of course, renovation that's obviously another conversation altogether. We're really just talking about like, easy touch-ups here and there, right? So I think that's pretty much enough about inspections, to be honest.
Yeah, we did talk about a lot. So why don't we just quickly summarize kind of the key points and key takeaways about the inspection process, right?
Let's do it.
So the first thing we want to make sure is that we hire a qualified inspector for the home that we're buying, right? Number two is we do want to make sure we review that report in detail so that there are no surprises. Key reminder is that this is not a bulletproof vest. This isn't going to save you from everything, but it is going to give you more information than if you were not to use an inspector. At the end of the day, it's a peace of mind kind of thing.
That's right.
Now, from what comes from the report, we have to determine how we want to handle it. Are we going to ask the seller for a price reduction? Are we going to ask the seller to fix it, if that's even an option? Or we're going to go fix it ourselves.
That's right.
But reminder, discuss this with your realtor, plan what works best for you as the buyer.
Absolutely. No, that's great. What a way to start the first podcast.
Wow.
I know, right? Well, I guess thanks everybody to listening to the first episode of the Mike for
Vancouver Real Estate.
I'm Joe.
I'm Jeff. And hopefully we'll be able to provide you with a lot more content. And if you guys do enjoy the show,
you know what to do. Subscribe, leave a comment, or shoot us an email, which we'll leave it somewhere down in the video.
Yeah. And you know what? Realtors, buyers, please, if you have some crazy story about some things you guys found during an inspection that you want to share with us so that we can share on our show for our next episode, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Okay. Well, see you guys next week, guys.
Yeah. Have a good week.
Bye.